Okay, now that it looks like I've got everybody in, I'm going to get started here. Today we're going to talk a little bit about Syneto, and here are some of the topics we're going to discuss. I'm going to just start off a little bit and talk about me and who I am and how that maps to Syneto. Then we're going to go into the tool and we're going to show how you use Syneto for unified storage, and we'll take some disks and create a pool. We'll create and share folders, and then we'll create and share a LUN, and hopefully that whole part there will take about 10 minutes. I work with a lot of the different OpenZFS utilities and appliances and other softwares, but the thing that I love the most about Syneto is how easy it is. It is just incredibly easy to be up and operational in minutes instead of hours or days, depending on what tool you're looking at. So from there, I'll just kind of walk through a little bit of the system administration and go into, I'm just going to do a quick introduction to what you can do with virtualization too, either adding additional VMs to your Syneto storage appliance or using it for storage for virtualization. And then we'll just briefly talk about cluster. This again is an introduction, so we'll just very briefly touch on those topics. So just a little background on me. I have my own company, Kately Co. I do consulting and training and I would say probably 90% of what I do is just software-defined storage. And I work with all kinds of different utilities. I'm not a paid marketing professional doing this here today. I'm somebody that works with all the different software-defined tools. I specialize in OpenZFS and any of the tools around OpenZFS. I spent over 20 years working as a system administrator or as a sales engineer for Solaris. I've spent a lot of time working with Linux, and I worked with Solaris back when it was BSD. And I currently am working a lot with the FreeBSD and Linux worlds, in particularly around software-defined storage, either the paid products or the open source versions of them. And probably the last 10 years of my life has just really been dedicated to software-defined storage, and I love software-defined storage in the fact that you can use commodity components. When you look at the proprietary storage, people, you buy a massive frame, you might get a good deal on a massive frame, and then when you go to buy a disk for it, it's $10,000 for a disk or $5,000 for a controller, or maybe not that. I'm exaggerating there, but there's just that kind of proprietary vendor lock-in, and the whole software-defined storage world has kind of reinvented the storage industry in the fact that commodity products, the cost has come way down, and so many cool things that you can do then with software defined. If you look at the old enterprise storage platforms, anytime that you wanted to add interoperability to Active Directory, it'd be a $10,000 add-on, or you have to upgrade the firmware, and it's very kludgy. And the fact that this is all, kind of software defined, adding new features, adding new functionality is, as easy as adding a patch. And it's a very, very easy transition to move to next generation features. So let's get started. Today we're going to talk about Syneto, and the reason we're talking about Syneto today is because I love Syneto, and I'd love to see more people using Syneto. Coming from a ZFS background, it is probably the easiest GUI to get up and operational on. So let's go over to that. So just to show you what I'm doing here today, I'm running Syneto inside of a VirtualBox VM. I have a couple little virtual disks that I'm using for this demo. If you're installing Syneto, Syneto primarily comes installed on hardware. They vet hardware very carefully. They know exactly what the best hardware is to use for your particular use case. And so once it boots up, you're going to have console access to it somehow, but you should be able to see what IP address here. And for me here, it's 192.198.0.19. I'm going to use that, and I'm going to connect to the storage via browser, and there is a command line interface here. You can use it. It's much easier to go connect to it though from a browser. So let's do that. Let's migrate over there. Okay, so the first time that you log in, so you take that IP address and you get to this authentication screen. First time you log in, you want to log in with admin and admin. Definitely change that password though, if you're in a secure environment. So when you first walk into the utility, you'll see some dashboard information. We'll come back to that here in a few minutes. Where I want to start is where you know what you're doing, right? Like we're doing data management, right? So let's start off there. I'm going to start by looking at disk pools and creating, so taking the disks that I have and putting them all into a pool and then carving that up for different uses. And, that's kind of the idea behind unified storage or software-defined storage. One of the things that I really like about Syneto is this ability to map my disks. So I left a couple of them here unmapped. What I can do when I map my disks and I click on the disk to do that, I can say, if they're in two different JBODs or if they're on different controllers, I'll at least know that information about them. Also, we have the ability to, and I'm inside of a VM here, so I don't have LEDs, right? But if you had hardware that had LEDs on it, you'd be able to, click on a button and flash the LED. Very nice capability. But here, I might say this one is on, HPA 1 or 0. And then as I map the disks, they're going to go on in a row and a column. So I'm going to put this in row 1, column 3, so that I can lay these disks out in some sort of order that makes sense to me. I'm going to add this last one here in to say that that's on HPA 2. Right? And I'll put that in row 2, column 3. And so, I get a good visual of these are connected to this controller, these are connected to that controller, so that I can, if I want to do things like mirror across controllers, I can do that. So, in this pools, I've got two things I can do. I can import an existing pool. So if you have some OpenZFS disks that you want to just pull in, we should be able to do that here, or create a new pool. And that's what I'll do here. So once we get in here, the reason why I love Syneto is how easy this one screen is. I got to give it a name. I can't call it pool. I can't call it our pool because there's already one there. I'm just going to call this, try or something. Then I have the number of disks that can fail in each group. So I don't have to think about I don't have to think RAID, right? Like I don't have to be some high-end RAID person to understand how many disks in each group can fail before I have a total system failure. So 0, not recommended. 1 will, if I put in two disks, will give me mirrored sets. If I put in three disks, will give me a RAID 5 set. And then, if I go to 2, I might have 3-way mirrors, things like that. So I'm going to just leave it on 1. I'm going to create some mirrored pairs here. So I'm going to grab this disk as on one controller, and then I'll grab this disk that's on the other controller, and that's a mirrored pair. So I'm going to add another data group. So I'll grab this disk and this disk. And now I can take my last 2 disks here and put them in as another mirrored pair, or I can take one of these disks and put it as a spare. If it's an SSD, maybe to maybe put it in as a, here I can have a read cache or a write cache. So I can use SSDs here for read cache and write cache. So I can also repurpose these disks as needed. Here it lets me, click on this little thing to get it out of there. For right now, though, this is how I'm going to do it. I'll have one disk as read cache, one as a spare. If I had more disks, it would you can put it in a little write cache too. But I'm going to add this. This does take a minute or two to get through and to, oh, it's already up. Right, so I have my pool called try. It shows me my free space, my use space, dedupe ratio. It shows me if one of the cool things about ZFS is that it has the ability to have full data integrity, meaning actually what that means in English or in Geek is that there's a checksum on every data block, so that if you are reading some data in from disk, maybe it's a backup or an archive or something that's been sitting there spinning for 10 years, and you read the data in from disk. Most file systems out there, you read the data in from disk and it might be corrupt, right? We're starting to learn that because we have archives that have been sitting on spinning disks for 20 years now, and you go in to read them in and no, it's not good. So one of the things that the Syneto storage has is this data integrity, so that we know that when we read the storage back in again, that it is good data. It has a checksum on it. We read the checksum, we check the checksum. Either that or we know for sure that it's corrupt. If I don't have a good copy, if I have a mirrored pair, if I have some sort of RAID underneath it, I know that I can go get a good copy. In that, there's this scan that we can do periodically just to check the checksums and make sure everything's all good. So now that I have my pool, I want to make it usable for, some users or groups or somehow. So we're going to go back up here under data management, and we're going to go into folders. And I love that Syneto calls it a folder. So I'm going to click on my try pool, and I can do 2 things here. I can create a new folder for a purpose, like I can do it for an NFS share, a CIF share, an AFP share, or I can create a virtual disk for iSCSI or FC. So I can have Fibre connectivity in my Syneto box. I actually can have it like that, right? Like I can have Fibre connectivity from my Syneto box to my VMs, and then I can also have CIF shares going out over Ethernet, right? So that idea of unified storage. I have one storage platform. I have one set of disks. I have one hot spare. I can take all of that feature functionality and put it into one frame, and I don't have to have multiple different frames for every different thing that I'm doing. So here I'm going to create a new folder in here, and I'm going to make it for my CIF share. And I can give it whatever name I want. Again, it's a folder. It's a logical organization of files. I'm going to put files in here. I have a couple of things. I can set up a quota. By default, all of my folders are going to share the same pool of disks. So I may want to limit things to how much space they can use out of that pool of disks. I can usually with CIF shares, I want to pass through my ACLs. I don't want to interfere with ACLs at all. I want to, we'll talk about snapshots later here, but I'm just going to add this. So now that I have this added, I can go right in here and say, turn this into a CIF share. And I can alter the name, or it comes up with a default name for me. I can allow guest access or not guest access. No guest access. Yes, guest access. I can do that right away. I can share this. If I don't have guest just access. And I love this. It tells me now on your Windows box, this is how you access this. If you're on Linux or on a Mac, this is how you're going to access this. Very, very nice. And then I may want to go into access control here and say, set up some ownership here. Who's going to be able to access this? How about Linda gets to access this in the group and the group staff, right? Like I can now, if Linda and the group staff try to access this, they'll have to give a password in order to access a share, and we're done, right? Like that's, I don't know, a minute to set up a SIF share. Very, very easy. I'll show you in a minute too how you can just pull all this stuff out of Active Directory too. I can just pull all my users from Active Directory and go. Just as easy for setting up NFS shares or AFP shares. Once I start to put files into this folder, I can also take a snapshot of it. So I just say take a snapshot. I'm going to call it here. I'm doing this on a Tuesday. I'm going to say this is my Tuesday snapshot. Take the snapshot. We also have some methodologies for kind of doing that in some automated way, and I'll show you that here in a minute. But we can, with this Tuesday snapshot, I can take that snapshot and make a new data set out of it. So I could actually do this. I can take this and say all of the files in here I'm going to use for my Apple share. How's that? Right? Or my NFS share. Lots of nice things that we can do with those snapshots, including replicate them. And I'll show you that in a minute. So let's go back up here to try and let's show the other big kind of share that we can do, and that is creating a virtual disk. So I might call this LAN 1 as my first virtual disk that I'm going to share it on the network. I got to give it a little bit of size, and I love this. I can either go thin, yes, no, yes, no. I mean, these are, as a storage administrator, these are the questions I ask myself. Like, okay, what am I going to name this particular one? How big is it going to be? Do I want it thin provisioned or not? I can't think of a reason why I would turn off compression. The LZ4 compression, very high performance, very low space savings, but very high performance. Thin provision, I'm gonna say yes. I like to over provision iSCSI. I just do, but I think that's a matter of taste. You have the choice here, right? And I just click on add. Now, once I've created this, right away I can say, do you want to create this as an iSCSI or a FC share? For iSCSI, I'm just going to say what initiator group am I using, local target groups. I'm going to say this is LAN. Did I say 1? Yes, I did say 1. And just click add. And as soon as I do that, it's available and out there as an iSCSI share. If I had Fibre on the box, I would also have the FC choices there too. So I have an iSCSI, I have a SIF share, and I have an iSCSI LAN, and I think that took me like 8 minutes. That's amazing to me. Now we can do the same thing with the FC LANs. We can, create snapshots or replicate those snapshots. So I can take that FC LAN and, create a copy of it on another Syneto frame. The remote data center, very, very easy to do. I also can create this, and the next thing in my data management list here is about snapshot and replication schedules. So I can go in there and I can have a new hourly schedule or a new daily schedule. But here it shows me of the snapshots that I have, and I have like my C share here, my SIF share. I can say replicate this every hour, or snapshot this every hour. Right? And keep 24 of those snapshots locally. How easy is that, right? Or I could say snapshot it and the logic of this is so clean and nice. compared to all the other tools that I use. They're a little bit more difficult. I sell a lot of training. Very easy, right? Like every 0 hour, every minute, I could say every minute and keep 24 snapshots locally. I also, once I create that snapshot, I can replicate it either locally to another pool. So I might have things like a SSD pool and a hard drive pool, and I can keep moving the data from the SSD pool to the hard drive pool. So I can move it from pool to pool, or I can move it remotely to a destination host that is also running Syneto. So I can decide how many snapshots I keep on the remote side too, right? Like I could keep 24 locally, but 10,000 remotely, have an archive or a backup system running out there. I don't have another system set up right now, so I'm not going to do this, but we have that, that's what an hourly schedule looks like. And then daily, right? Like I can say, take a snapshot of this LUN every day at midnight and keep 24 of them locally. And then when I replicate remotely to a host, and I put the host name in there and the data set that it's going to land in the remote host. And I can say how many of those I want to keep over there too. Very easy. Do have to do a little key passing. Not going to go through that right now, but you do have to move the keys, make sure that the SSH keys are passed between the two systems. That's very easy to do also on the Syneto storage. So next up now, that's it, right? I'm up. I'm replicating. I'm doing everything that I need to do. If I need to look at the CIF shares that I have or make any changes to those CIF shares, I can have a list here of all of those CIF shares. And if I want to, muck with the iSCSI, we can add new portal groups and new initiator groups here. In sharing, but very little needs to be configured. There is a lot that can be configured. So that's the storage part of it. That was really quick, right? Like it took us all of 20 minutes to be up and operational with the storage. Let's just look a little bit here at the system administration stuff. That's also very easy and very good. When I look at the analytics here, I get to see what I want to see. As a storage administrator, what do I want to see? I want to see IOPS and bandwidth, really. And here I've got my read IOPS and my write IOPS. It shows me our pool and my other pool. My other pool should be here too. Shows me my average service times to the disks, and then I can see these little peaks too, right? Like I can kind of narrow in here, and we see at this time, date and time, we saw a peak of 0.39 milliseconds. That's not a peak. If I get in the 20 millisecond range, I worry about average service times, but this is actually quite beautiful. I don't have any data running on it right now, but how easy is this? It's very nice and very easy to look at these analytics and see the things you want to see. Am I waiting on storage access, and what's my active average service time? Very, very easy way to do this. It does show us that this is being refreshed every 10 seconds. It's great. You can also add an additional graph to your analytics. I can go into network here. And I can set up additional NICs here. I have an additional NIC, but it doesn't have a link on it. I can do link aggregation. I can do VLANs. I can do VLAN tagging. I can create, I can put different IP addresses. I can do DHCP or static. I can, put different interfaces on different networks. And I can do that all here very easily, just go in and to edit, right? I want to change this from DHCP to static, put in my IP address, update, ready to go. So I'm just going to cancel here. I want to stay connected right now. We also can, have some basic network information for the whole box, DNS information, default gateway information. I also have the ability to add additional routes. And then this is how easy it is to go in to connect to Active Directory. So currently I'm just doing Windows networking local, but if I want to go to Active, I just say, what's the domain name? What's the IP address or host name of the domain controller? What username? Administrator usually. And password am I going to use here? Join in. That's it. That's all we need to do. Very, very quick and easy. I'm not going to, I'm going to show you Fibre channel. I don't have any Fibre cards connected on my virtual machine here, but you can get the Syneto storage with Fibre installed, so you can connect via Fibre, right, to whatever LUNs you carve out. I can add local user accounts. If I had an Active Directory here, it would show me all my users, Active Directory users and groups. And, for accounts, what do I want to do? I want to either create a new local group or a new local user. Those are my two buttons. Bam, go in, create a new user. I like to create this user a lot from my NFS 502. I've got a couple of groups here that I can use. Where am I going to put the home directory? Have what password am I going to use for this user to access the storage? Click on all that and click on add. I'm going to hit cancel here though, because I don't want to actually do that. The update mechanism is very, very good, very quick, very easy. So I have it do automatic update checking. I can turn this on. It'll continue to check for software updates. It'll send me email notification if I have notifications set up. It says here notifications not configured. If I have notifications set up, so once I set up my storage, and it can, every once in a while check and see if there's an update. Here's my next thing, notifications. I can set it up so that it sends me email when there's a problem on the storage. I don't have to log in all the time and check to see if there's a problem on the storage. It'll just automatically send me email. And these are the reasons why it will send me email. Again, it's nice that all this is listed out. And you can actually say, you know what? When my storage gets over 50% full, I'd like to know. So I can do those things. To set up email notification, I have to put probably an SMTP server here. 465 SSL. It's good. It should ask me for username and password. I want to send it from, when I receive this in my email account, where do I get, who does it show up coming from? So I save this. I might say, my Syneto storage, appliance 1, something like that. And then I can add as many recipients as I want here. So I can say, Linda@katelyco.com is going to get an email, and I can say, the other guys that work on my team, I can add new recipients. I can send a test email here, and it shows that they were sent. So I'll have to check my email to make sure that they were received, but we know that they were sent out. Just a couple more things here. Replication keys. You just look at the replication keys in order to set them. I'm going to copy this one over to the receiving host for replication. I'm going to get the receiving host keys and bring it over here for replication. Primarily, I like that they say these are the replication keys. What do you use them for? Replication. Date and time. I can set my date and time here with the NTP servers. It also, if this box had IPMI, we'd be able to connect to the IPMI here through this GUI. And then we have the different licenses, different levels of licenses for this frame. So that's the system administration stuff. Again, about 5 minutes of taught you how to use this stuff. Let's just look quickly. I'm not really set up for virtualization, and I really would like to encourage you, if you want to see this stuff, to contact your hardware vendor. So contact Syneto or contact me, and I'll get you in touch with them, and they will give you a longer demo of creating local virtual machines. But I can create local virtual machines if I have, it's not going to let me create virtual machines inside of virtual machines. But if this was installed on raw hardware, I would be able to start carving up virtual machines and loading them up with, if I wanted to put Linux in there or Windows or, whatever in these virtual machines, I can, to run additional software on top of the storage platform. This is my favorite part of Syneto, this interoperability with vCenter or ESX. I can just add, give me the host name, username and password for the administrator to that ESX vCenter. Click on add, and it'll connect to it and see what VMs are there. It'll populate this with a list of VMs, and then you can see their data stores and look at it from both the ESX side and from the storage side. And we can do things like coordinated snapshotting, so that when you snapshot on the Syneto, it will actually contact the vCenter, make sure that the VM takes a snapshot prior to taking the snapshot here. So we make sure that the data is coalesced. Very cool enterprise feature. And again, you can get a demo of this from your, if you're interested, let me know. Also, HA, again, super easy to set up, create a new cluster. Bam. You do have to buy the plugins separately for cluster, but if it's on and ready to go, create the new cluster or join an existing cluster. Very easy little buttons here to get you to there. And again, if you're interested in that, contact me or them. We have one more button in the GUI here. We have the help. We can, quickly go into the admin guide from here. You don't have to Google or do anything else. You can connect to support from here. You can also set up remote access, like in a second, to give technical support access to your frame so that they can solve or help solve the problems for you. You also can report a bug from inside of here. So that's pretty much what I wanted to show you today. Pretty much done with the demo here. If you have any other questions, let me get back over to my slide. Here are my slides. So any follow-up, here's my email address, linda@katelyco.com. My Skype ID is katelyco. If you just want to, I actually use Skype like I am. Probably should use real IM, but Skype's nice for IM. So if you have any questions or if you want to arrange an additional demo, please let me know. So hopefully you've enjoyed this. I didn't get a lot of questions here on chat, but if you have any questions, make sure you email me. So thanks for your time.